Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Sprinkle Economic Development Agency meeting to order. With roll call, please.
Board Member Van Gordon. Here. Board Member Weber.
Here.
Board Member Moe.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rodley.
Here.
Board Member Blackwell.
Here.
Board Member Doyle.
Here.
Chair Fissionary.
Here.
And Board Member Lovell.
Here. Thank you very much. First item should be the consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar from whenever that was. June. Second.
Moved and seconded. Take a vote.
Yes.
We're going to just do a verbal. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify as same. Carried unanimously. Next item.
Next item under communications is business from the audience. Don't know that we have any cards. We have one hand online. No cards.
I have got a set of instructions anyway to put out there that I did not put out. There is one time designated for public testimony this evening under business from the audience. If you are attending in person, please complete the request to speak card located at the city recorder's desk in the library meeting room and turn them into the city recorder. If you are joining us online with a tablet, smartphone, or computer and wish to speak either of those times, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. The order of public testimony is as follows. First one will be anyone in person in the library meeting room. And secondly would be anyone who raised their virtual hand. Is there anyone in the meeting room that would like to make a comment? Okay, I see none.
We have one hand online. The speaker is Daphne Mantis. Daphne, you should be able to unmute your microphone.
I'm unmuted.
Can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I am Daphne Mantis. I live at 569 West D Street in Springfield. I'm asking the board to provide an update every SEDA meeting as to Glenwood development. At the June 27th SEDA special regular meeting, the Raul Broca Architects and Walter Macy team provided a task and timeline to develop a master plan. And my concern is as to transparency of the process and outreach to the community and opportunity to comment and participate. I'd like to know whether or not people are doing what the tasks they outlined in the timeline. I mean, has there been a neighborhood meeting as stated in task 5? Because the timeline has passed. And frankly, it wasn't clear whether or not neighborhood was only Glenwood residents or whether it would include West Centennial, the part of the neighborhood I live in, which is directly across the river from Glenwood. Like to know whether or not there will be opportunity to comment at the initial public hearing, which is part of task 6. How will the public know as to when that hearing is and the extent to which they can participate? Task 7 is there's supposed to be a public open house in October. Want to know whether or not, again, it's going to be just providing information as to the status of things, or whether there will be outreach included, public comment included at that stage. My concern is the transparency of this process. I'm trying to follow along as a citizen, and I think it would help to give somebody to provide an update at every SEDA meeting as to this complicated process. Thank you to consider this.
Thank you, Daphne. Is there any more?
We have no other speakers.
Okay, thank you very much. And so we have, next is what response?
Next item is new business.
Any new business?
We have one item under new business. It's a downtown exclusive negotiating agreement. Ali Camp is here for the staff report.
Hi, SEDA board members. It's good to see you all. Welcome back. I'm here today, and Christina's joining us online if we have questions. I'm here today to talk about the exclusive negotiating agreement we left off with in June for the Motors LLC. There are 2 adjacent tax lots to the Blue McKenzie project site. A representative of the Motors LLC is open to exploring the transfer of those properties to SEDA for future development potential. The mechanism we have available to explore this potential is an exclusive negotiating agreement, and you have that in your packet as attachment 1. I do want to note there are some holdover items from the last time we used this template. They are immaterial to the agreement, but they will be added before if you decide to proceed. So I want to call out a couple of items within the ENA that deserve a little bit of attention. An ENA establishes time to exclusively gather an understanding of a property's development potential. SEDA's tasks within the draft ENA include gathering an updated title report, an updated environmental review, and examining the development potential of the lot. The owner's tasks within the draft include provision of building and site information and establishing next steps with the Motors LLC members. They are owned by multiple folks. The proposed timeframe for the ENA is a quick one. It's 3 months because these properties were included in the initial Blue McKenzie project scope and due diligence back in 2020. So we have a lot of this foundational understanding of the land already. That was administered by a company called SiteWorks. Much of this information is available or just needs minor updates. So we can accomplish that in a 90-day period. This ENA is non-binding and is drafted as a precursor to an MOU and a binding agreement such as a term sheet or purchase and sale agreement. Mutual agreement from both parties would be needed to proceed after the due diligence period. And we would come back to you after that 90-day due diligence period to talk about our findings. So just a little reminder, why would we do this? This land has the ability to improve the developability of the Blue McKenzie site. Compiling multiple properties for development allows for more flexibility for how the land is ultimately utilized, which can both help to deliver community needs and make a project more economically viable. The closeout of the Blue McKenzie pre-development loan is still underway, and we are currently in negotiations. I am open to any questions you may have.
Councilor Doyle.
First question is, how does the historic designation of that Buick building affect the potential development? I mean, from what I understand, and then a lot of times with historic stuff, you can't tear it down. So what's the concern or the issues that might be surrounding that?
Right, I think there's considerations for limitations that come with historic properties. We, as part of the SEDA due diligence and the ENA, we're going to be hiring someone to do some development analysis for us to see what the potential of the site could reach. That's going to be one of their considerations.
I think it seems like it should just be a simple question of looking at the historic district rules. Shouldn't need to hire a consultant to figure that out. We should be able to look and go, the historic rules state that if it meets this, that, and the other thing, then it, it can't be, certain things can't be changed. It has to have certain facade at the front of it. All of those things should be listed in what the historic company, or historic district people do. And then the other thing I'm wondering about is like, how much more are we going to throw at this Blue McKenzie project? Like, why aren't we letting them negotiate and them pay all of the, fees to go out and investigate and look at this? Because it just sounds like we're doing this to benefit the Blue McKenzie project, which we don't even know where that's going. So I'm really hesitant to support this.
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of questions too on this. What about, I think in tandem to the questions on historic development, I think it's a great question. I think the other thing is about zoning. I mean, obviously this is a controlled mixed use zone, which is, has a lot of different uses to it. But one of the things we ran into just recently was a church wanted to use a mixed use building on Main Street and was denied by the permit office. So what kinds of other restrictions are we going to lay on top of this historic building that would normally not have zoning applications on it? For example, I know of some business that wanted to use that historic dealership as an old Land Rover hub and repair place, but one use is approved as far as downtown and one is not. That would be car repair. So how are we gonna mitigate that usage when that building was originally used for both retail and repair? So that's my question.
Well, our mixed use commercial zone is one of our most flexible,
But it doesn't allow car repair in it.
right, or churches.
Right.
apparently.
So it's not as mixed as use as we might think.
Yeah, so I think that's part of hiring this development professional to help us understand what we could potentially achieve on the site. I realize that's bigger than just looking at the historic review code. But someone with a deep knowledge of development can help us understand the lane that we need to stay within for a project to be successful.
Right, that building's on the National Historic
Mhm.
Registry, right? Right, so it's a whole other ball game. Okay. Thank you.
I have a quick question, if you don't mind, Ally, on the, you're talking about a consultant, but also are we not also need to have an analysis, a market analysis and valuation done on this property? So would that not also be part of the scope or the compass of that analysis?
Yes. So part of our due diligence with properties is to gather an appraisal too, so we know what the current market value is of the site.
That should all come out with that.
Yep.
And we're gonna have to do that anyway.
I know the restrictions on use of that building, but I'm curious, what can it be used for? So that's the interesting thing.
Can,
What can it be used for?
I mean, thanks, Chair. When you were talking about using an appraisal to help gain information, appraisals nowadays are running between $500 and $6,700. Do we have a budget for this due diligence item? That we have a not to exceed budget? Because I could see this consultant appraisal, I could see us having 30,000 into this before we even have information enough to make a decision. And that may be, I may be uncomfortable with spending that kind of money when local resources can help us find that information, I think, for a lot less.
Maybe staff could approach us when you get the information and potential costs, so that way I think it's fair for this board to look at it and determine whether or not it's financially feasible, although I almost can't see the circumstances where we wouldn't want to have that information. Depends on how we get it, I suppose.
I will share, our tax increment is used for redevelopment and development of our downtown core. This is part of the work that we do to figure out if development is a potential for a site.
One last question, if I can, Chair. Thank you. This would add then 7 properties that the city owns in the downtown core. Eventually, we're gonna have a plan, like a visionary plan of what the city's gonna do with those 7 properties, because we're not, excuse the French, but we're not displaying monopoly here, collecting hotels on vacant lots. We want to make sure those development, and we're in a real hostile financial environment right now. So SEDA's gonna have to have a pretty aggressive plan going forward, because the indicators I've been told that we're not gonna see ourselves out of this financial hostility for at least a couple of years, if not 3. So I'd like to know our short and long-term plan for these 7 properties as well.
I think these are all good questions, right? But we need to sort of segment them out. I'm fine moving forward with the negotiated agreement, but I think that question about and I know we don't have all the information, but what's the strategy to have the conversation? We talked about it last year. What's the timeline for that conversation about the additional property would be important.
Are we comfortable with head nods to move forward?
We need a motion, which I shall make.
Is there,
Before you make a motion, I just have one piece of information. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, you were there.
Christina Kraz, sorry. Is it okay if I go ahead, Chair?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that this property is not in our zoned historic district overlay. It is only on the National Registry of Historic Places, so it qualifies for tax incentives, but I don't believe it's restricted from being altered or demolished in the same way that properties in the historic overlay district are restricted. So the investigation of that National Registry will go to the financial aspects of its preservation or maintenance as a historic structure rather than what our own code would require, because our code doesn't have any specific historic requirements for this property.
Good information. Thank you, Christina. You ready for motion? I'd like to hear it.
Move to authorize the city manager to negotiate and enter into an exclusive negotiating agreement with Motors LLC for 2 lots in downtown Springfield in the vicinity of 7th and 8th Street. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Calling for a vote.
So can you do roll call?
I could do verbal. Okay. All those in favor signify by an aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by aye.
Aye.
I have 6 in favor, 2 opposed. Okay, motion carries. Any old business? We're adjourned. Have a good night, folks. Be safe. Maybe seat out there.